I'm sure all of you have taken a good look at the panelists who will be joining us in just a couple of seconds. So without any further delay, let's get the discussion started. And let me bring on board on the screen all our panelists together. And let me hand it over to Mr. Asim Parashar to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Kavya. And let me welcome all my esteemed panelists. So today's topic, NBFCs being resilient and thriving in today's digital banking system. Now, that's quite a interesting topic for us. And there are multiple reasons for us. So change is the only constant. That saying is very much applicable for our industry. Technology is enabling the digital transformation at a very rapid pace to meet increased expectations of all the stakeholders, whether customers, lenders, regulators, partners, etc. Now, what are the key trends that are emerging? Customer centricity with hyper-personalization. Adoption of technology at a very fast rate. Earlier, it used to take months and years to implement technology, but now the adoption speed has to be higher. The third is increased volume, because with the availability of the channels 24/7, either sourcing of the business or servicing of the business or collections, it is available 24/7 for all the partners and the customers. Increased external integrations. So with credit bureaus, credit scores, your bank statement, PAN. So many integrations are coming up on whether India stack with neobanks. So multiple external integrations have to be handled. Next is increased data generation. The amount of data that is being generated in the financial sector is humongous. And on top of it, you need to drive analytics. Still, we are far away from that. So that is another trend that we are seeing. And when all these to happen, you require an IT infrastructure which needs to be resilient, scalable, secure, agile, nimble, 24/7 available, and a framework to manage the risk emerging out of digital technology, right? So you will hear AI, ML, cloud, and so many things coming up. So with this context, let me start with Dinesh. So Dinesh, you have been kind of working with one of the leading NBFC. So what are the top challenges that financial institutions are facing in their digital transformation journey?
Hey, thanks a lot, Asim. First of all, to introduce all of us. I think so. I must thank you. You've given a good preview of what all is happening on the NBFC space. The way I look at it is, I would look at a very high level 5-pronged challenges that I see. The first one, which is, I'm sure a lot of folks on this panel will probably smile, is everything that we do being a regulated, environment is all around compliance and security. I feel that in my mind continues to remain, and I won't call it a challenge, but I would call that as an opportunity, wherein, while we, get out there and we being a large player, or, a lot of us being large players, given the large user bases and the data and the risk that we kind of embody and carry, many a times the processes that we look at completely automating, we have to look at suboptimal ways of working around those processes. Not because we want to keep them suboptimal, because the regulatory framework and the compliance and the security needs will ensure that we do those checks, or we introduce those processes which allow us to adhere, at the same time get to the digital ambitions that we all are gunning for. So I would definitely put compliance and security as the first challenge or the opportunity that we all have to address on a continuing basis. The second, I would say, is given the large bases that we have, while there are certain businesses that we have to digitally transform, I mean, the greenfield ones are easier. They can be born on the cloud, they can be cloud native, and you can start the stack, or I would say look at hyper personalization from day one, look at an omnipresence from day one. But we still have to, in the ecosystem, look at legacy systems and technology, and it requires a very determined push to transform that. So if I have to give it a name, I would say the legacy systems and processes will continue to remain a challenge for us to transform to the new age avatars that we all are gunning for. Third, I would look at is from customer experience. or I would look at, say, from an end user expectation, right? In today's world of instant gratification and making sure that everything is do it yourself or a self-service model, right? With the new age experiences and the end user's expectation, a lot of institutions will have to balance that, right? Because you still have, the customers that will traditionally want to meet you in a physical environment, and you still have the digital era. So there is a certain amount of phygital that we will continue to maintain, but the end user expectation will not stop, right? They are equally knowledgeable than they were yesterday. They are more knowledgeable. And if you look at various segmentation of customers across India, then you need to balance that. The fourth I would look at for all of this is the skill sets and building of the team, right? I mean, in the era of retention that we all are in, attracting and retaining new talent, whether it is, looking at the existing policies and workforce, is definitely something that we all have to get our hands around, right? So upskilling existing talent is very expensive. Getting new talent and retaining them is definitely an era that we all are, going to be looking at as we move into the future. So building a team and making sure that you're able to retain them is, in my mind, also an equal challenge. Last, which I feel is, something that we are probably having blinders at all time, I call them the digital attackers, right? And in a good way, right? Now, somebody will say they're the new digital fintech. Some will say they're, the disruptors. But competition is coming from all angles, right? And it need not be a fintech. It could be some new age player who is wanting to get into the digital finance arena, right? And they've got deep pockets without taking names, right? And if you're an incumbent or you're a new player, right, you have to catch up your game. So if I have to summarize, there is compliance and security. There is legacy systems and processes that need to evolve. There is the customer experience that we have to always keep in mind. The third, building the skill set and team, and definitely the competition or the digital disruptors that will come our way. Yeah. So Asim, I hope that gives you a good summary and insight.
Yes, Dinesh. And let me extend that part of it, what you brought out. So the first one, compliance and security, and the legacy system and processes. That's one of the biggest challenges that we are facing for the traditional or for the incumbent players. Now, let me extend this to Jayesh. Jayesh, you come from a IT service, security service provider, right? You have your products and solutions which you are helping it. Now, let me pose this question to you. Is application security the most important challenge, or the security has to be looked at with the same lens across the digital platforms that these institutions are building, and the supporting IT infrastructure also, because it's not only about the digital front-end customer-facing platform, but there are underlying so many applications, infrastructure, which has to work in tandem. So what's your view working in the industry, supporting all financial services institutions?
Thanks, Asim, and good afternoon to all the esteemed panelists. So when it comes to security, I don't think, or we cannot say that we should prioritize or we should give an importance to any of them. I think everything is important, whether it is infrastructure or application. But definitely, application security is very, very critical. And as Dinesh said, there are a lot of people embarking on this, and they are coming a very, very disruptive way of getting into the market. And application is one of them. And in the current business scenario, the rollouts, because of the market dynamics or the adoption is like yesterday, right? And with cloud coming into picture, that becomes even more easier from an adoption perspective. When we go to any of the, with due respect to all the cloud providers that we have, when we go to them, they say that you're putting an application on top of it, and that's your responsibility, while I will take care of the other aspects of it, whether the infrastructure and stuff like that, right? So what it implies is, I would say that application security is critical and needs to be taken care by all of us and with our customers or partners. But there has to be obviously the controls on other aspects of IT, but then application security is what we have to take care of it. And I read an interesting note somewhere saying, and this is from a hacker's perspective, saying that applications are very attractive nowadays, and and I would say most vulnerable. I would also like to share some of the snippets of what some of the global CIOs or the peers of the panelists, esteemed panelists that we have today, and this is from a research report. What they say about is all the CIOs and all the business leaders say, especially in the banking and NBFC, is that digital is a given, right? And adoption of digital is a given because of the pace of getting into the market, right? That's one part of it. Second part of it is the security. We have to take care of the security in a holistic perspective. And third one is the cloud migration. Now, when it comes to the pace of digitization, that is very, very rampant nowadays. And it is hygiene for the business, for the survival, for the speed, agility, as Dinesh was mentioning earlier. So the need of the hour is to build more and more applications which are very secure. And they say that it has to be done, as I said earlier, yesterday. So it has come down from months to weeks to days. So it is building applications, which itself takes a lot of skill sets. Or there are a lot of applications which are available in the market, which is tested, sophisticated, and matured to go out there and consume by building APIs or integrators. So at the end of the day, what ask is that we have to roll the things out, which is tested, built, tested, and staged. So, and all this requires components like testing at various phases, and application security happens to be one of them, right? And it's no different that the vulnerabilities that we are seeing are I would say significantly changed. The SQLs or the DDoS attacks are pretty much there, but the type of damage that it can cause to a business is significant nowadays. And it could be the compromise of data, financial siphoning, brand impact, and at the end of the day, a huge impact on the business. That's what my view is, Asim.
Thanks, Jayesh. And let me extend it. You said one statement which I still, I would like to take forward. Applications are very attractive from hackers' perspective because they have also access to the same tools, technology, lot of open source tools which are available to be used. So Nitin, coming to you, because you have been part of this IT infrastructure, you are the practitioner, you have been interacting with your peers across financial services sector. What's your view on this? That how should we go about it? And what is the security paramount importance? What are the challenges that you have faced in executing and implementing that?
Yeah, thanks, Asim. So I think the technology transformation, the journey which we have kind of started, and it's a long back journey which we have started. So the customers, what customer needs? Customer needs basically to be a safe, simple, intuitive, and effective within the protocols digital platforms. And these should be self-service platforms. So we have launched certain platforms like Smart Assist, which are designed to replace basically the face-to-face meetings. This is first of its kind, basically a co-browsing service which ensures contactless, safe, and yet to be personalized customer meeting, right? So another digital ecosystem which we have built is WhatsApp services for customer to kind of have a compatible platform for them and offering the most comprehensive list of solutions from our side. We have also strengthened basically the self-service servicing digital platforms, such as our Life Assist, which is a mobile app and a customer portal. We have a chatbot going as a chatbot. We have our bots and ISO as a video contact center platform. These are all witnessed basically an increased engagement. While we transform, I think along with the application and the infrastructure security has to be looked at basically two more very crucial areas also. Those areas are basically data and people. So everyone in this session will definitely agree that data is a crucial for all of us, right? And here we have in BALIC, we have an immense focus on how do we protect from the data breaches, misuse, manipulation of information, corruptions, And as a control strategy, we have a huge focus on data protection, data recovery capabilities, and boundary defense. The second very important aspect is people. So the identity theft, man in the middle, social engineering, abuse of authorizations are the key risk, to name a few, right? We feel that we must have a strong control framework to have a control on access, activity monitoring, security skills and trainings, your background checks, spreading awareness about security with the people, and a lot of control on the social activities. Next very important aspect is application security, which you have very rightly pointed out. Protection of applications from like manipulation of applications, unauthorized installations of software in laptops, desktops, misuse of applications, denial of service, and this list can go on. As a strategy, control over email, browser protections, application security controls, secure configuration of applications, encryption is again a key area, and continuous vulnerability assessment is of prime importance for us. And last but not the least is the infrastructure security. When you see the threat vectors are changing every day, it is a great challenge for every technology team to kind of protect the infrastructure. And we have to have very strong controls over privilege access, monitoring of logs, malware defense, network controls, and a continuous kind of a VAPT engagement. While we talk about the critical assets, control processes, organization structure as a building block for cybersecurity framework, I think having a strong governance framework is also very important aspect. Asim.
No, thanks, Nitin. And listening to you while you were just talking about the security aspect, and it's such a long list, right? So just taking it forward, let me go to Durgaprasad. So Nitin, Jayesh, they talked about the security, compliance, governance aspect of it and what needs to be done, both on the human side of it as well as on the IT infrastructure. But coming to you, there are multiple other risks which are emanating with the adoption of the new technology. Now, AI, ML, we are doing it. Blockchain, there are multiple initiatives happening. There are open source technology which are coming in. External integrations we are using, APIs, etc. Cloud is there. And we are also hearing a lot of consultants talking about frameworks like responsible AI, etc., and all those things. So in your opinion, the speed of change is very fast. How to manage all of these? And as a custodian of the data, of the IT infrastructure, of the applications, and also demand from customer and your business stakeholders, how do you manage it? It must be keeping you awake.
Definitely, I think very apt question, and thank you, Asim, for having me on this. So if you take AI, ML, that's kind of becoming embedded into every aspect of our life, and also in the financial services. So if you take any lending organization, AI is kind of now the de facto standard for things like credit decisioning, collection approaches, early warnings, fraud analytics, and so on. Right? But then how do we make sure that there is a level of control when these are getting deployed within the organization? So I think the first, maybe when you take any of these, maybe the impact of these may be very limited or well contained in the financial or lending space. But if you take AI, ML at a large level, you could go to driverless cars or, AI-based defense systems where the implications are much more wider. But if you take purely the financial services space, I think the first thing we need to do is see what can go wrong. Right. So if you take a typical credit decisioning approach, then I say, if I deploy a model there, what is it that can go in the worst case scenario? And then you say, okay, how do I have a controlled way of getting that launch within the organization? So can I say that loans above a certain amount, irrespective of a model saying yes, can I have a level of oversight over that? And then slowly release the wall as we see the model's behavior in line with the business expectation. So that becomes a way for us to control that, because there's no way we can stop the adoption of these. But how do we make sure that there is no significant negative impact. So that's the first part of making sure, analyzing what can go wrong when you go with such things. The second is, like I think both Dinesh and Nitin mentioned, data is the key for many of these, right? So how do we make sure you are feeding the right data in for these to behave in a clear fashion? In the sense, a lot of ethical bias and all those come in because the incoming data itself is to a large extent leading to that kind of biased output. So, and maybe in our case, if you take an example, if I am building a model for lending to prime customers or a model to lend for a two-wheeler, I cannot just go and apply that to a subprime scenario or a housing loan scenario. So making sure what are we building that model for, what context, what domain it is working in, and then being aware of the shifts in the landscape when you are taking it across domains. So making sure you are clear on that is another way to make sure there is no impact of these models coming in. And those are purely from a model data, impact perspective. I think the third part is, like you mentioned, moving towards cloud and even service providers who give some of these models as a service. You could have a fraud analytics as a service, or you could have voice bots and all that coming as a service. So making sure that your responsibility doesn't stop at your border and say, I'm consuming it as an API, I don't know what is going on there behind the scenes. So being aware of what kind of changes are being put in those cases and not having an adverse impact, meaning there are providers today who can say, I will give you a voice service. It will be a human voice bot, engaging with your customer. Now, if something goes wrong, if the language is inappropriate or something goes wrong, ultimately it's the business reputation at risk. So making sure you have a significant amount of control and oversight of changes being put in, and know that what is the level to which you can allow them to go, beyond which you may have to switch back to manual control. So that's, I think, the way you have to take a balanced approach. And maybe the last one on cloud, the shift to cloud is happening. But that does not mean, a lot of responsibility from our shoulders get taken away. Meaning probably it only increases in, like you said, is it keeping us awake in the night? In many cases, yes. But I think adoption is going to be there, but you have to be careful when you move in that direction.
No, thanks on that part of it. And there are a couple of examples also, right? So when a bot was being trained with the customers and the customer was using slangs and abusive language, and it learned on that part of it, and it started using them. Now that's a reputational risk. Forget about anything else. But if a bot is talking in that sense, it's at the end, it rests at the lender's door. And the second, where on the underwriting side of it, we have seen that biases being creeping in, depending upon from which geography, which place, etc., you are coming in, and it just creates biases. And it's kind of mimic our aspects of it as a human. So let me just extend that part of it. And moving on the cloud part and coming to you, Nitin. So cloud is now becoming almost like a daily buzzword. But what is the challenges on adopting cloud? Now, Jayesh had talked about that application is your responsibility, you take care of it, and rest all is. So what's your opinion based on your experience of adopting cloud?
Yes, Asim. The next generation IT infrastructure basically is going to reside in a hybrid cloud for sure. And today we see a lot of companies have multi-cloud hybrid strategies as well. Cloud is also playing a very vital role in digital transformation due to availability, reliability, scalability, faster time to market. However, cloud poses certain risks also due to its flexibility in architecture and the shared responsibility model. In many cases, we can see that replicating on-premise security controls may not work for cloud. And I think the few approaches should be considered to manage the risk on cloud. The cybersecurity framework in organizations should be remodeled to make it a cloud-centric model. This includes perimeter to be redefined to have a secure topology and boundary very clearly defined. Certain options like backhauling or adoption of cloud service provider controls and best of breed security controls for public and private cloud also can be explored. And these choices also can be used in combination, and decision may vary company to company. Apart from infra level controls, more focus needed on making applications highly secure by adding security features to minimize exposure of sensitive data. Identity and access management is the next critical control element, which must be considered. And we should consider encryption of data in transit and rest also when we do cloud sharing. We have a strong monitoring control with Security Operations Center, powered by automation, user and network behavior analytics, and artificial intelligence. Last but not least, we must adopt DevSecOps to ensure security during the development cycle itself. Protecting customer data through data protection programs is extremely important, which we feel. For instance, in our recently launched industry first, the Smart Assist, which I talked about earlier, one of the prominent feature we have focused on the data security. The solution is completely secure, ensuring complete data protection and verifiable with a verifiable audit trace. Asim.
So thanks, Nitin. And Jayesh, over to you from the perspective that how you as a product and service provider in the security business, how do you see that you can play a more proactive role in the cloud adoption part of it?
Yeah, thanks, Asim. So before I come to that, from my experience in the past also, I would like to share some of the areas of risks, and some of them Nitin already covered about. As I said, application security happens to be the key aspect. And the other areas when you're going to cloud are looking at things like data security, or a lot of regulatory compliances based on the type of industry that you're coming from, and especially more for in industries that we all are in right now. The panelists are there, banks or NBFCs, and governed by various compliances. So risk needs to be looked at from that point of view. Nitin briefly touched upon how we can control them by having appropriate encryption solutions or DLP solutions, or maybe having DLP solutions in place, so that the data that you are having is pretty much or trying to safeguard your data. So what leading organizations typically do is, they have a very, very mature data protection regulatory compliance program, staffed with talented people, and to look at this. The second area that can be looked at is, from while adopting cloud, looking at the technology aspect as well, right? So how much agile is the cloud infrastructure provider, or how much mature they are? Because at the end of the day, if they keep on changing the technologies, it is pretty much time consuming and costly for organizations to re-architect themselves and getting back to or building applications again, right? And again, securing them. So they need to look at from a point of view of scalability perspective, how much headrooms the cloud providers have. The third thing that briefly Nitin touched upon was, a lot of the organizations are embarking on DevOps, and mature organizations like you all are looking at DevSecOps or SecDevOps or whatever we can name it, and that needs to be looked at. One other area which needs to be looked at is from a financial risk perspective, this avoiding burnouts. Some of us talked about that. The people are coming in have got deep pockets, but there are players who pretty much run out. So we need to look at from a perspective that there is a longevity of the services that can be provided by all of them. Coming back to the point of how we are helping organizations is, by helping organizations to secure themselves from an application perspective. We as a provider are helping them to secure their applications by looking at it from a first point is identifying the risks of the application, and then helping the organization to protect them from those risks. So those risks cannot be exploited. And so it's sort of providing a virtual protection for organizations. That's how we are doing. And we have got a platform for that, which is called Aptranath. So that's how we are helping organizations securing themselves.
So thanks, Jayesh. And you talked about longevity of the service providers, various providers on the value chain. Now moving to you, Rahul, because that's the very leading point. So there are a lot of ecosystem-based business models are evolving, right? And how to maintain the resiliency and security of the platform end to end. at each level. That's the biggest challenge. And what Jayesh was also kind of alluding to.
Oh, I completely agree, Asim. Thanks for this question. So see, yes, true. There is no one solution that fits all the needs. Today we have multi-cloud, we have our co-location clouds, we have business-specific systems, we have in-house applications, we have SaaS-based system, we have purchase license, and I believe that everyone would agree that in our own organizations, if we start writing down right now that all systems, be it in-house, SaaS-based, or the purchase license, what all systems we are using, we would miss out few. We are using so many. Right. So now you touched upon very interesting point, resiliency. First time, resiliency, yes. Cloud is something I would say, yeah, they have come up with great help in maintaining the resiliency. We can say that now the days are gone when we had to plan the whole DR setup. We had data tapes for every day, and their cloud has helped a lot. Now we have like serverless applications. We have hot DRs, multiple region hot databases and servers, replica servers. We have dynamic machine images every day that if your server goes down, you can just pick up in a second or like in a few minutes. You have distributed storage so that you don't worry about that if the server goes down or hard disk goes crash. But interestingly, the point is, which you mentioned, that every level, we have multiple different levels and multiple different services. So every level of the resiliency, in my opinion, has to be treated and is being treated very differently. When you talk about the databases, you see that, okay, you have not only the nightly backups, you have hot databases, your read replicas, so in case your main databases goes down, like within a second. So sometimes with the right architecture, right services, it's a auto hot deployment and change the databases. You have all the content you have already, the industry has already migrated that to CDN rather than providing yourself. Storage these days are something which are providing like the right terminology and jargon is 11.9 resiliency. This is 99.9999 up to 11 times uptime. And people are building a lot of pure machine, I would say managed services based serverless applications where you are not dependent upon the scale, you are not dependent upon the hardware, but your system, your capability grows with the load and with the volume. People are building a lot of isolated microservice-based applications so that even if the one application goes down, the whole ecosystem is not going to crash. We are doing a lot of Docker implementation, Kubernetes. So that's where we also at Capri managing a lot of resiliency. Now, a very interesting point what you touched upon the security, and I know it's pain and probably the daily rigor for everyone. So for me, I divide it into like two parts. One is your IT infra and core application security, which is, I would say, we have come a long way. The basic of that security, DDoS attacks, your password protection policies, SQL injections, your port security, those are like largely covered. But I'm not saying that the work is done. It's a daily rigor. Maybe today people don't talk about a lot every day in the office about the DDoS attack or password protection policy, all those things, but it happens in the back. That's why nobody's talking about. If we are not doing about it, then we would be talking day in, day out about it. I believe for the technology team, the best thing is, the best work is happen when nobody's talk about this team. Now, the very interesting aspect, which is everybody has talked about the data security, which is also a part of, I would say, AppSec. And we also all agree that it is the beast tame. Data security and access level control at all levels. Data today, with so many systems, data is not just sitting at one place, data is sitting at multiple systems. And data is flowing between multiple systems. And the beauty is, data is flowing between multiple systems. I have multiple channels as well. Sometimes it direct DB integrations, It is your API-based data flow. It is your flat files integrations where you are using FTP servers and everything. So that is there, and how do we solve it? And of course, with the compliance, there is a PII that you have to handle about it. Otherwise, your compliance goes for a toss. So the point is, of course, people talk about a lot about the data security, encryption, audits, but still, that is like a 101. We have to do it. There is no escape from it. But then there's another dimension because data is at multiple places. We end up, whatever we do, but we end up providing a lot of unwanted access to our people. So that's where we are also. So for me, your data lakes, your data mart, and your analytics systems come into the picture where we consolidate the data. Where we marry the data, there are one central places where all the data sits, and then you can provide the row level security across levels, across the right people. There you can mask your PII information, just like Aadhaar started working on the virtual Aadhaar ID. You start working on the virtual PII. So your PII is not going out in the public. And of course, if you have to give a small set of access to people, so rather than giving the whole database access, you provide the row level access from your data lakes and data marts. So for me, this works like this way.
So thanks, Rahul. So one thing which I kind of take it from you is the unwanted access. Now that if I can control, then it could also reduce the challenges on the internal security problem. Now let me move to one question, and which our audience will be very much interested to know about it. And Dinesh, coming to you. In this era of great attrition, and you talked in your opening view, how to manage the skill sets required to drive the digital transformation. Now, that's the big elephant in the room. Everybody is scampering for it. How to manage it? It is resiliency without humans is not possible. How much we can talk about it, technology can do X, Y, Z, but you require the humans.
Wonderful. I think so. It's an excellent question. And I don't think so we have like a solution to it, but I'll probably start off with a very simple example, right? So maybe a simple analogy, right? We are experiencing a great attrition or the great resignation, as you called it, right? So one thing that, we have to, I would say, focus on is if you compare it to like, why do people change their house? And the reason I'm trying to give that as an example is we spend such a large amount of time in our offices, correct? Rather, now with people coming back with the onset of what's happening with Omicron phasing out, we're going to come back, right? We are going to again spend a lot of time. So people have realized that, you probably want to change your houses because maybe, you feel something is not right. You probably want to change your house because you probably are seeing a better house somewhere else, right? So you're driving down somewhere and something looks more attractive, right? Or you want to expand, what you're living in your house. Rather, you want to expand your knowledge, right? So with that backdrop, I don't think so there is one solution. I would probably break it down into saying that where is your talent, today placed, right? If you're looking at digital transformations and digital front ends and digital assets and digital channels, right? Now that's where you can actually build your digital assets and create a differentiation, right? I mean, technology is not the differentiation that we all hope that it will be, right? It's a culmination of a lot of things that will come together and be offered as a solution, right? So if I look at the digital channels or the front ends, in my mind, that's where a lot of in-house leadership, thought leadership, talent, that's where you should hone your skills, right? And grow your talent. Then the next come on some of the solutions, which are niche solutions, right? Which are probably solutions that just work, and it could be an enterprise solution. It could be something which is very specific, right? I mean, some of the cloud service providers today give you a lot of cloud native services. Now, you want to use that as a platform, right? That's why the whole platform play comes into place. Now, you don't need to have a lot of people who understand the platform, but you need people who can build on that platform, right? So there, I would look at like a hybrid approach, right? Wherein there are experts who will, come in and give you a platform, and you still have, full stack developers or talent who can actually build on it. Then the third are the enabling services, or, when you look at the whole public and private cloud infra. Now, that is where you actually want to tap the expertise there, right? And I know we spoke a lot about resiliency and security, and I don't want to build on the past, but all of us were at some point wanting to build those skill sets. But now you have experts there, right? The hacker is far more intelligent than we building a security gateway, right? And that's evolved. Resiliency, right? We earlier wanted to create the far DR, near DR, and we did clustering and a lot of those things. Now you don't want to spend your time doing that. There are experts out there who heavily invest on that. So you do need those niche players, right? So in my mind, you need to have both. You need to, follow an approach wherein you have in-house talent and you build those core engineering capabilities with you, which allow you to create that differentiation in the digital assets. You still need to have niche players, because as people leave you, you do need to, leverage on those augmented teams to fill in those gaps till you're able to get the talent back. But having said that, I feel that we still need to fix, some of the drivers of attrition, right? Because if you're able to fix that, and you can fix what is broken, and you're looking at, I was joking the other day with somebody on a lighter note. I don't know whether people want to live in a house anymore, right? You probably want to work out of a boat. We've seen enough snippets, right? During the pandemics, there were people who were working, not from their base location, but they were delivering. And that's the era that we are in, right? So maybe, the house also needs to be relooked at. Maybe what we were giving as a desk can just be a location. I mean, look at us today, right? We are all dispersed. None of us met on this esteemed panel, but we are on this digital platform, and we are actually looking at some very good outcomes that we've all experienced. So, that's my 2 bits on how you want to probably look at in-house versus niche talent. And, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, it's still quite filled of hope. But yeah, so coming to you quickly, Durgaprasad, because we are on time. So one Ramban that you would suggest to manage this attrition of skill sets.
Yeah, because I think Dinesh beautifully covered the whole part. I think a lot of this is also the whole mindset change, right? With kind of a gig economy kind of setup. And I think individually our own preferences are also changing. We are moving from, cars we used to own for 5, 10, 20 years to now, going on a lease and changing to new models every few years, or maybe going an Ola Uber kind of way, right? So even the career styles and expectations are also changing for especially some of the, newer generations in the workforce. But the way I would look at it is like the way we have crown jewels within organization in terms of your applications and data. Maybe HR also need to identify the crown jewels of people and talent and say, how do we make sure those are having a clear sense of belonging within the organization? So there's an engagement and a clear career way for them to be retained. So that's one big part of how, this whole, the whole attrition game has to be played is one part, I think. The other is, and again, Dinesh mentioned that is around, if you look at the whole kind of skill as an axis, it's almost like a bell curve. You will have the niche skills on one side, and then you'll have the large capacity commodity skills on the other. And then you'll have where the organization needs to focus somewhere in the middle, where you say these are the tech areas or tech stacks we will focus on. So again, the brains of the organization probably need to say, okay, this is where we are going to build our talent on, and where there is a niche capability or maybe a large capacity requirement, we may work with partners. I think that's the only way to balance out and keep some kind of a viability for ongoing initiatives within the organization.
Sure. Rahul, quickly to you.
Interesting. Like if you ask any of us how the hiring is going on, everybody will smile, right? And very simply, yes, as a techie, as much as I want all the systems in-house, but yes, I need niche players. And I would not say in this ecosystem, I would not say niche players, niche partners, because there are a lot of systems which are system specific, and a lot of years of field maturity has come to it to build those systems. No point reinventing the wheel. So you need partners. And I have a personal theory, very simple. So there are like three components of it: free, fast, and feature. When I say free means when you are building it in-house, you're not paying to a third party. So whenever you want a system, free, fast, and feature, you always get two. You want fast and feature, you don't get free. You get free and fast, you don't get feature. Right.
So we have exceeded our time for this discussion. So I hope the audience would have got a lot of practical examples and insights from this. So over to you, Kavya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parashar. I think very promptly you've sort of completed that session, but I also noticed how we managed to get back-to-back insights from all our amazing panelists. So I'm going to thank you all for your time. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, all our dear attendees, I hope you're all set, because coming up next is a fireside chat. I hope you're also taking some amazing takeaways from these sessions. If so, then keep those tweets coming using hashtag ET Digital banking. That's the hashtag, ladies and gentlemen. So keep tweeting. And while we do that, let's also set the tone for the upcoming fireside chat. Meanwhile, before we jump into the fireside chat, I'd also like to inform you that the parallel tracks are taking place. So I hope you're also taking a look at the CXO boardroom, because right now a session is taking place around the empowering of financial institutions to compete in data-centered world. While that's taking place, up next would also be the digitalization journey, scaling innovation in order to build a truly digital bank. That's another topic coming up for all of you. Meanwhile, stay tuned. So all that and more, agenda is very extensive. While over here with me, we'll be having the fireside chat. I'm going to set the tone for that in just a couple of seconds. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon.